Hello everyone, my name is Natalie and today we will learn a bit about understanding wine and explore different approaches to tasting wine to understand what is truly important when evaluating it. There are only two main approaches. The first approach is called the hedonistic tasting. It is aimed at sharing your emotions and impressions. Typically it takes place among friends and family, or even alone when we simply hold a glass of wine and ponder something. The second approach is analytical tasting, which is used by professionals. This approach is focused on determining the typicity of the wine, its longevity, identifying any flaws, as well as pairing wine with food. WSED, or Wine and Spirit Education Trust, offers a more systematic approach, which is actually used by professionals, including novice tasters who are just getting acquainted with wine. Nevertheless, no matter how many approaches exist in the world, there are always universal elements for wine tasting. In the Wine in the App card, information is provided about the wine's acidity level, its body, or tannin level, which are important to understand when choosing a wine. So the first thing we evaluate is the color of the wine. The color palette is quite broad. For white wines, it ranges from pale green to rich golden hues. And if we are talking about red or rosé wines, then we look at a palette from pale pink, almost transparent, to deep reddish brown. A weak color intensity tells us that there was insufficient extraction from the grape skins. The coloring substances into the wine, or it may indicate that the harvest year was quite rainy and this wine cannot be stored, it needs to be consumed. Now, a more saturated color may indicate that it was a good harvest year, there was good color extraction, and that the wine is rich and dense. And if we see rusty hues in white or even red wines, it doesn't matter. This already tells us about the age of the wine, meaning the wine oxidizes over time, turning slightly rusty in color. This can be good or bad. Nevertheless, color tells us about different characteristics of the wine. The second important indicator is the aroma of the wine. Even if you don't know how to describe wine correctly or you are just starting to do so, you should pay attention to the aroma, because when we take the very first breath, often sommeliers in restaurants pour a little wine for us so that we can taste it and evaluate its aroma. There should be no strange smells, unpleasant odors, burnt cardboard, sulfur, or soaked apples. No, strange and unpleasant smells. If the wine is clean, beautiful, and has a pure aroma, it means we can leave the wine in the glass to let it open up a bit and show its full intensity. In the wine card, the app also provides information about the intensity of the aroma and what aromas can be found in this wine. The next important indicator is the taste of the wine. In general, tasting is a very subjective matter because the perception of acidity, bitterness, sweetness in wine or any other products is absolutely different for different people. For instance, people with low sensitivity perceive coffee, such as a double espresso, much more easily than those with high sensitivity who need a cup of cappuccino. First and foremost, in wine, we always pay attention to acidity. Acidity is a very important indicator, and we always use the word acidity, not sour. Since acidity in wine is important, it balances the entire body, the entire flavor palette. For example, if we talk about sweet wines, an acidic wine refreshes it a little, lifts it up a bit. By the way, the famous Chianti wine has quite high acidity and allows us to pair Chianti with pizza. A very good balance in acidity, it allows the wine to be gastronomic. Barolo, Bordeaux, Chianti, these are all wines despite being red with good high acidity. But it is important to remember that acidity should always be balanced in wine. The second important indicator is tannins. Tannins are astringent substances found in the skin of grapes. In everyday life, tannin is found in green tea, persimmons, and dark chocolate. In fact, there are many products that contain tannin. Red wine has a large amount of tannin because during the wine production process, the grape skin, which contains tannin, is in prolonged contact with the grape juice. Tannin in unripe grapes can cause a strong dryness in the mouth and a strong astringent sensation. And over time, as the wine ages in the barrel, the tannin softens. By and large, tannin in red wines can be present in large quantities. The wine can be very tannic, very powerful, but at the same time, the tannin should be balanced, very soft, even I would say velvety. It is worth mentioning another characteristic of wine that we always pay attention to during tasting, which is the body of the wine. Wine can be light-bodied, medium-bodied, and full-bodied. To understand light, medium, or full body in wine, you can imagine water, milk, or juice and cream. For example, a light-bodied wine will feel more like water in terms of sensation, such lightness in the mouth, whereas a full-bodied wine will be more like drinking cream. That is, you can draw an interesting parallel between light, medium, and full-bodied wine. The body is influenced by the amount of tannin, alcohol level, and sugar content. It's also important to remember that in white wines, the body can be enhanced by barrel aging, meaning certain technological processes also add a bit of body to the wine. We always conclude the tasting with an indicator, the aftertaste of the wine. In fact, the aftertaste even has its own units of measurement, called caudally. 1 caudally equals 1 second. Thus, light or unobtrusive wines have a very short aftertaste, and after a sip of such wine, you want to take another sip. Higher quality, more full-bodied wines have an indicator of 8 to 10 caudali, more prolonged. And the most amazing wines, the highest quality, the most full-bodied wines can last up to 20 caudal. That is, the aftertaste in the mouth can last a whole 20 seconds. Try tasting wine today and count your caudali and note the necessary indicators that we discussed today.